kind of the same answer. I don't know how I knew about it, and called Jeffrey, like, what the hell's going on, Jeffrey? And I was like, do you think I'm stupid? Like, this was a bad girl, I was on a date, she made all this stuff up. You don't think I'd behave this way, would you? I hope not, was probably what I said, because I couldn't believe that anybody that I knew would behave like that.
And what you're describing, is that the original single conversation you described earlier, or is that a separate conversation with Mr. Epstein about the issue?
I'm a little confused. This question about the lady in the hotel in New York was one conversation, and the notion or the discussion about Jeffrey's interviewing models, I think, was a separate one, and they didn't happen simultaneously.
I understand. It sounds like that might have been about 4 years apart from each other.
You could tell me 4 years or 4 months. I don't remember.
So it sounds like at that point there would have been at least 2 conversations with Mr. Epstein about the broader Victoria's Secret issue. In 2004, a woman named Elizabeth Tai had a similar experience. She was invited to Mr. Epstein's New York home under the impression that he would be able to get her a job as a Victoria's Secret model. Mr. Epstein apparently, allegedly, undressed and handed her a vibrator. Ms. Tai threw the vibrator at his head and ran out of the room. Were you made aware of this allegation at the time?
I never heard the story before.
In 2005, the New York Post ran an article describing a Romanian model who allegedly landed a gig at Wexner's Victoria's Secret brand thanks to Mr. Epstein. Did you have any knowledge about models who actually acquired jobs at Victoria's Secret directly or indirectly through Mr. Epstein?
No, but I didn't meet, interview, or pick models. That wasn't what I did, and no one in the business did.
But just to phrase it clearly, to your knowledge, did Victoria's Secret ever hire or contract with a model at the recommendation of Jeffrey Epstein?
No, I can't imagine they did. No, I wouldn't know if they did, but the way that we handled our marketing, it couldn't have happened. I think I would have known, because it just wasn't the practice.
Could I ask one follow-up question with respect to that second conversation and the young woman named Alicia Arden? I know they were a few years apart, but if you recall, was there any part of you that doubted whether Mr. Epstein had been truthful in his denial with you the first time?
At the time, I don't think I connected them. You can't imagine how busy I was. I was engaged, I was married, I'm running 20 businesses. I never made the connection.
And as far as you recall, those are the only 2 times that you were alerted to Mr. Epstein holding himself out as affiliated with Victoria's Secret.
Those stories, yeah.
It's been reported that following Mr. Epstein's arrest in 2019, the limited company, L Brands, retained 2 different law firms were retained to investigate Epstein's affiliation with the company. We're not aware of those reports ever having been made public. To your knowledge, were those investigations completed?
When was it?
This would be after the arrest, so in 2019 and 2020.
I'm not aware that the board investigated Jeffrey.
And I think the first law firm investigation was for the board, broadly speaking, and then some individual board members engaged a law firm to perform a second investigation. But it sounds like you have no knowledge of either investigation.
I found out about 2 weeks ago that from one of our ex-board members that he'd hired Kroll to investigate Jeffrey, and I never knew it.
Could you elaborate on that just a moment? In other words, a board member described what exactly?
Well, this was 2 weeks ago. That he was worried about Jeffrey, and he asked Jules Kroll to investigate him.
Is Jules Kroll
an investigator? white collar criminal. He was a Justice Department, FBI kind of a guy. Started his own, I think it's the largest international and private investigation firm in the world. And so he said, and I said, so what happened? And he said, he didn't think Jeffrey was a good guy. And I said, what else? He said, that's all he would say. He said, just not a good guy. And he said, he asked him for specifics. And Joel said, I don't have any specifics. He's just not a good guy, whatever that meant.
Do you recall approximately what time frame the Kroll review was undertaken, or how was it described to you?
Well, the way it was described to me is the board member asked Jules Kroll. He didn't tell me it was a board thing. And so it must have been, I don't know, about 19 or 20, because I know when I retired, I know when I think I know when COVID was and all those things that happened, but I had no knowledge of it. And I was quite frankly, it made no difference to me, but I was kind of surprised that somebody on the board would investigate somebody and not tell me, or, as the founder, principal, whatever. They didn't, which is probably a good thing.
So for the two law firm investigations I described and this separate Kroll inquiry, it sounds like you had no awareness of those when they occurred.
Nothing.
I would like to introduce Minority Exhibit J. Do one more?
Yeah.
So, as you can see, this is an email from June of 2008, right around the time that Epstein pled guilty to soliciting a minor for prostitution. And you said to him, quote, Abigail told me the result. All I can say is I feel sorry. You violated your own number one rule, always be careful. And Epstein replied, no excuse. So clearly, either you knew or Epstein had said to you that his number one rule was to be careful. What, in your recollection, was he so careful about?
About being honest and stealing from me, us, these criminal, terrible, horrible things that he did. And I don't know what prompted me, because when I saw this, I think I was just giving him the finger. It's something in the news, something. Maybe it was the fact that Abigail told me, and I was cooking on it, and I just wanted, like, you sold yourself as a careful, honest fiduciary, and you completely robbed us, did all these terrible things.
It sounds like you, at least at the time, understood that it sounds like Mr. Epstein would say that his number one rule was to be careful. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. What do you recall that being in the context of when Mr. Epstein would say that? Why was that his number one rule? I'll phrase it that way.
Well, again, he alleged himself to be a fiduciary, and I'm always careful about my clients. I don't do risky investments. I wasn't looking for cleverness. I was looking for accuracy, conservative, like just run things really smoothly. And Jeffrey would say, don't worry, I'm always very careful. And that might have meant to be not abusive to my admin or to be prompt and accurate with tax returns. He's just careful, because that's what you would expect. If my personal attorney would have said, don't worry, I'm always careful on your account, that would ring, comfortably for me. and complete crook.
And you touched on it, but in terms of what you can recall about how you felt at the time, the crimes, even the crime that he pled to, was not insignificant. It involved a minor. Do you recall? I mean, that would seem not to necessarily be the product of simply not being careful. So do you recall whether you felt anger, shock, or simply how could you have been so careless?
I don't remember how I felt. Probably anger that a person in a trust position could be so mistrusted, so crooked, so bad.
As far as you can recall, when was the last time you spoke with Mr. Epstein?
Well, it was probably sometime before I gave him the finger. So it probably was in 07 or 08, sometimes when he got in trouble. In my mind, he died.
Well, definitely at this point, you two were in communication, so that's the middle of 2008.
You have someone who spoke to him.
Sure, I'll clarify. Any form of electronic or verbal communication.
I wouldn't remember that I did this. What I remember is when I found out how bad his sexual behavior was, and he was stealing from us, dead.
If you recall, I think you had said that he initially framed the investigation to you as involving a massage and an overzealous police chief. At least that was what your counsels represented to DOJ. Do you recall that?
I don't recall it. I don't know that he told Abigail that, and she told me.
No, not what she told
Okay,
you.
I don't know. I don't, how I know, I don't know.
Do you recall when you first became aware of his crimes involving minors?
I don't recall.
There is evidence that Mr. Epstein tried to get in touch with you in 2010 and 2011. We don't know whether that continued later. Do you have any recollection of having any form of contact with him after 2008?
Nothing. I'm positive that I had no communication of any kind. I keep repeating that from my point of view, he died. I didn't want to even think about it. Yeah,
Starting to wrap up, are there other individuals from Mr. Epstein's orbit at the time that you think we should talk to who might have an understanding of Mr. Epstein's crimes?
What I'm thinking is that he referenced several people that I never met. Do I think they might have information? Possibly, but I don't know whether he made it up or he really did it.
Do you recall some examples of people he would reference?
Yeah, he'd say, I was in Aspen last week. And I'd say, oh, what were you doing in Aspen? And he said, the family that owns Fidelity in Massachusetts, Johnson. He said, I worked for Abigail Johnson, and I was there, talking to her about their family situation. But he could have been making it up. But at the time, as a chief, he works for the Johnson family. They're pretty sophisticated. He would talk about the founders of Google, that they were friends, and he'd visit them. He would talk about, got to come out to San Francisco. You should meet the Amazon guy.
Bezos.
And I said, no, I'm not too busy, and I'm interested, and I don't do what he does. And I said, but he's really a smart guy. You should meet him. I said, if I'm ever in San Francisco, I'll look him up. I'm too busy. Trying to think if there's any others. the Google guys. And I never met them. I never met Abigail Johnson, but I know the name. That's all I can recall. But there were so many names dropped that, and I don't know. I don't know as much interest in celebrities, political celebrities or whatever's. He was just like, I know so and so, or I know so and so. I don't want to mislead you and get a woman I don't know in trouble like Abigail Johnson. But up until the fact that I believed that he was a crook, I believed that he knew all these people.
Do you recall whether he ever described anybody as his closest personal friends? Do you have an understanding of who his close friends would be?
No, he would talk about friends that he had. He would say he would told me how friendly he was with Ava's husband, and I always thought that's kind of funny that you're friends with your ex-fiance girlfriend's husband, but it was stuff like that. Did I believe that he knew Clinton? No, I didn't believe it. But sometimes people say that, they knew high people in high places.
Do you have any reflections as we close this conversation, whether it's on your relationship with Mr. Epstein or the pain and suffering that he and his accomplices inflicted on countless victims and survivors, largely with your resources? Any reflections of any kind on the entire topic?
Objection assumes the fact not in evidence.
Well, I believe he had a lot of resources beside mine. I think the only thing I said earlier was that if you understand, I think he had, in hindsight, multiple personalities, incredibly smart, which I didn't really see. I mean, when you can bullshit Nobel laureates about physics and university professors and physicians and all the people that I've read about, I mean, if it was a movie, no one would believe it. I mean, but what I read about him and the connections is so, and I think that the perspective to understand it would be to understand how intelligent he was as a criminal and all the things that he did. And I mean, I have trouble imagining how he could just do all the shit that he did, forget about work, in a 48-hour day, because it was always so busy with my stuff. And then you find out all these relationships. It's just mind-boggling. And some of it, even today, I can't believe that it's so, but some of the stuff I believe because I read about it. I mean, stuff I read yesterday, I go, I can't believe this. And I think to understand it, the criminal activities, all this stuff, it's like, I hope you guys are really good. And as I said earlier, I hope, probably the dismay of my advisors to give you an accurate picture of how I am and how he was, how I perceived him. And I mean, diabolical isn't a big enough word. And I think I said early, Bernie Madoff was a Boy Scout compared to Jeffrey. I mean, if I just believe what I read in the press about people that he contacted, university presidents, Gergen, my friend, I mean, it's just crazy. But he was beyond perfect or good at doing all the shit that he did. It's just, I think it's the rumor and innuendo that goes around me makes me very mad, because I think I'm a very straight arrow and a very responsible person. I don't want to give you a speech on my virtue, but I'm comfortable in my own skin. And I look up, I say, it's so preposterous to me what he got away with so long with so many people, that I can't imagine how a mind could do that and be robbing banks. It's crazy.